Hello, bitches. Welcome to another episode of Readers Aside. uh, yeah, a little bit different. Anyways, so here we are in the Cliff Goes Live studio. Got another H.P. Lovecraft story here. It's called The Color Out of Space. The Color Out of Space. It's about 30 pages long, about 22 pages in, and here we go. Boom, just like that. It does credit to the alertness of Amy's mind that he puzzled even at that tense moment, over a point which was essentially scientific. He could not but wonder at his gleaning of the same impression from a vapor glimpsed in the daytime against the window opening on the morning sky, and from a nocturnal exhalation seen as phosphorescent mist against the black, blasted landscape. It wasn't right. It was against nature. And he thought of those terrible last words of his stricken friend. It come from some place where that things ain't as they is here. One of them professors said so. All three horses outside, tied to a pair of shriveled saplings by the road, were now neighing and pawing frantically. The wagon driver started for the door to do something, but Amy laid a shaky hand on his shoulder. "Don't go out there," he whispered. "Don't go out there." Pardon me, he whispered. "Don't go out there. There, I mean." Readers aside, sorry about that. And readers aside. "There's more to this nor what we know. Nahum said something lived in the well that sucks your life out. He said it must be summat growed from a round ball like in one we all seen in the meteor stone that fell a year ago June. Sucks and burns, he said, and it's just a cloud of color like that light out there now that ye can hardly see and can't tell what it is. Nahum thought it feeds on everything living and gets stronger all the time. He said he's seen it this last week. It must be something from away off in the sky, like the men from the college last year says the meteor stone was. The way it's made and the way it works ain't like no way o' God's world. It's summat from beyond." So the men paused indecisively as the light from the well grew stronger, and the hitched horses pawed and whinnied in increasing frenzy. It was truly an awful moment, with terror in that ancient and accursed house itself. 4 monstrous sets of fragments, 2 from the house and 2 from the well, in the woodshed behind, and in that shaft of unknown and unholy iridescence from the slimy depths in front. Amy had restrained the driver on impulse, forgetting how uninjured he himself was after the clammy brushing of that colored vapor in the attic room, but perhaps it is just as well that he acted as he did. No one will ever know what was abroad that night, and though the blasphemy from beyond had not so far hurt any human of unweakened mind, there is no telling what it might not have done at that last moment, with its seemingly increased strength and the special signs of purpose it was soon to display beneath the half-clouded moonlit sky. All at once, one of the detectives at the window gave a short, sharp gasp. The others looked at him, and then quickly followed his own gaze upward to the point at which its idle strain had been suddenly arrested. There was no need for words. What had been disputed in country gossip was indisputable no longer, and it is because of the thing which every man of that party agreed in whispering later on that these strange days are never talked about in Arkham. It is necessary to premise that there was no wind at that hour of the evening. One did arise not long afterward, but there was absolutely none then. Even the dry tips of the lingering hedge mustard, grey and blighted, and the fringe on the roof of the standing Democrat wagon were unstirred. And yet, amid that tense, godless calm, the high, bare boughs of all the trees in the yard were moving. They were twitching morbidly and spasmodically, clawing in convulsive and epileptic madness at the moonlit clouds, scratching impotently at the noxious air as if jerked by some alien and bodiless line of linkage with subterranean horrors writhing and struggling below the black roots. Not a man breathed for several seconds. Then a cloud of darker depth passed over the moon. Then a cloud of darker depth passed over the moon, and the silhouette of clutching branches faded out momentarily. At this, there was a general cry, muffled with awe, but husky and almost identical from every throat. For the terror had not faded with the silhouette, and in the fearsome instant of a deeper darkness, the watcher saw wriggling at that treetop height 1,000 tiny points of faint and unhallowed radiance, tipping each bough like the fire of St. Elmo, or the flames that came down on the apostles' heads at Pentecost. Reader's aside, there is a note here. I think that's the longest I've ever gone without a reader's aside. Thank God for that note. I was starting to notice. What's wrong with him? Where's the reader's asides? I'm just thundering today, just thundering! Yeah, if anyone else is confused about what's happening in the story, I don't care. That's not the part of the format. The format is I'm reading, and you're just lucky to hear it, basically, and then I'll say shit from time to time, and that's the reader's asides. That's the format. So, like, read the rest of it yourselves. That's all I can say. Or find a different podcast to listen to. Alright, so we got the note here. St. Elmo's Fire, named after a 4th century saint, Erasmus. So he's not called Elmo, but does that make any fucking sense? A patron of sailors. So shouldn't be Saint Erasmus? Whatever. Is a bluish light, sometimes seen on the tips of tall objects during a thunderstorm. It is caused by a accumulation of a positive charge resulting from the negative charge in storm clouds. Pentecost, from the Greek Pentecost. 50th. It was originally a Hebrew agricultural festival, the 50th day after Passover. On the first Pentecost, after the death and resurrection of Jesus, the apostles gathered in Jerusalem. There was a sudden sound from heaven as of rushing wind, and there, quote, there appeared unto them cloven tongues, like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. What? That's fucked up. Acts chapter 2, verse 3. Jesus. No pun intended. Alright, that's the note. So just go back to the story, I guess. Where were we? Blah, 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 down there. Okay, here we go. Henry's aside. It was a monstrous constellation of unnatural light. Were there cloven hooves? What was that again? But cloven hooves? Fuck it, who cares? Like, sorry, pardon me. I'm just gonna say end reader's aside. Like glutted. Okay, hold on. What's going on here? It was a monstrous constellation of unnatural light, like a glutted swarm of corpse-fed fireflies dancing hellish sarabands over an accursed marsh. Reader's aside, what in the fuck? And reader's aside, and its color was that same nameless intrusion which Amy. Reader's aside, I'm pronouncing his name Amy. It's a dude, and it's spelled Ammi. So it's a dude. So I'm saying Amy, right? That's how I've been saying it. And reader's aside, which Amy had come to recognize and dread. Shit. All the while, the shaft of phosphorescence from the well was getting brighter and brighter, bringing to the minds of the huddled men a sense of doom and abnormality which far outraced any image their conscious minds could form. It was no longer shining out, it was pouring out. And as the shapeless stream of unplaceable color left the well, it seemed to flow directly into the sky. The veterinary shivered and walked to the front door to drop the heavy extra bar across it. Amy shook no less, and had to tug and point for lack of a controllable voice when he wished to draw notice to the growing luminosity in the trees. The neighing and stamping of the horses had become utterly frightful, but not a soul of that group in the old house would have ventured forth for any earthly reward. With the moments, the shining of the trees increased, while their restless branches seemed to strain more and more towards verticality. The wood of the well sweep was shining now, and presently a policeman dumbly pointed to some wooden sheds and beehives near the stone wall on the west. They were commencing to shine too, though the tethered vehicles of the visitors seemed so far unaffected. Then there was a wild commotion and clopping in the road, and as Amy quelched the lamp for better seeing, they realized that the span of frantic greys had broke the sapling and run off with the Democrat wagon. I really decided, I don't know what a Democrat wagon is supposed to be. It's Democrat, a dash wagon. A Democrat wagon. I don't know what kind of wagon that is. I don't know why it's called a Democrat wagon. Is it maybe like something that politicians used to stand on to give speeches? Perhaps. Could be it. Maybe that is it. Maybe that's it. And readers aside. The shock served to loosen several tongues, and embarrassed whispers were exchanged. It spreads on everything organic that's been around here, muttered the medical examiner. No one replied, but the man who had pardon me. But the man who had been in the well gave a hint that his long pole must have stirred up something intangible. It was awful, he added. There was no bottom at all, just ooze and bubbles, and the feeling of something lurking under there. Amy's horse still pawed and screamed deafeningly. Whatever. In the road outside, and nearly drowned its owner's faint quaver as he mumbled his formless reflections. It come from that stone. It growed down there. It got everything living. It fed itself on them. Mind and body. Thad and Marnie. Zenas and Nabby. Nahum was the last. They all drunk the water. It got strong on them. It come from beyond, where things ain't like they be here. Now it's going home. At this point, Reader's aside, I thought that was pretty good. I thought he did pretty good there. And Reader's aside. At this point, as the column of unknown color flared suddenly stronger and began to weave itself into fantastic suggestions of shape, which each spectator later described differently, there came from poor Hero such a sound as no man before or since ever heard from a horse. Every person in that low-pitched sitting room stopped his ears, and Amy turned away from the window in horror and nausea. Words could not convey it. When Amy looked out again, the hapless beast lay huddled, inert, on the moonlit ground, between the splintered shafts of the buggy. That was the last of Hero till they buried him next day. But the present was no time to mourn, for almost at this instant a detective silently called attention to something terrible in the very room with them. In the absence of the lamplight, it was clear that a faint phosphorescence had begun to pervade the entire apartment. Reader's aside, holy shit. And Reader's aside. Reader's aside. I don't know. Some shit's about to happen here. Reader's aside. And Reader's aside. It glowed on the broad plank floor and the fragment of rag carpet, and shimmered over the sashes of the small paned windows. It ran up and down the exposed corner posts, coruscated about the shelf and mantel, and infected the very doors and furniture. Each minute saw it strengthen, and at last it was very plain that healthy living things must leave that house. No shit. Amy showed them the back door, and the path up through the fields to the 10-acre pasture. They walked and stumbled as in a dream, and did not dare look back till they were far away on the high ground. They were glad of the path, for they could not have gone the front way by that well. It was bad enough passing the glowing barn and sheds, and those shining orchard trees with the gnarled fiendish contours, but thank heaven the branches did their worst twisting high up. The moon went under some very black clouds as they crossed the rustic bridge over Chapman's Brook, and it was blind groping from there to the open meadows. When they looked back towards the valley, and the distant gardener place at the bottom, they saw a fearsome sight. All the farm was shining with a hideous unknown blend of color. Trees, buildings, and even such grass and herbage as had not been wholly changed to lethal grey brittleness. The boughs were all straining skyward, tipped with tongues of foul flame, and lambent tricklings of the same monstrous fire were creeping about the ridge poles of the house, barn, and sheds. It was a scene from a vision of Fuseli, and over all the rest reigned that riot of luminous amorphousness. A riot of luminous amorphousness. Damn it, amorphousness. That alien and undimensioned rainbow of cryptic poison from the well, seething, feeling, lapping, reaching, scintillating, straining, and malignly bubbling in its cosmic and unrecognizable chromaticism. We decided, holy fuck. That was a hell of a sentence. We got another note here, and I'm going to read it. I'm going for it. It's on Vision of Fuseli. I imagine we're about to learn who Fuseli is. Why not? Why not? Do-ba-da-do-do, readers aside. Henry Fuseli, Henrique Fuseli. Henrique Fuseli. Well, then why people call him Henry Fuseli? Anyways, lived from 1741 to 1825. That's not a bad life. Was a Swiss-born painter who resided in England. I guess that's why they called him Henry. Yeah, his anglicized his name. I probably should have guessed that. There's a quote here from the man. I don't have to tell you why. Oh wait, it's not. Maybe this is from a book about him. Okay, I don't have to tell you why a Fuseli really brings a shiver, while a cheap ghost story frontispiece really brings a laugh. But I don't have to tell you why a Fuseli really brings a shiver, while a cheap ghost story frontispiece really brings a laugh. There was something genuine about Fuseli, huh? Really got to the heart of things, huh? See? Alright. What was the context here again? It was a scene from a vision of Fuseli. I guess Fuseli was fucked in the head. That's our takeaway. Alright, I'm fine with that. And readers aside. Then, without warning, the hideous thing shot vertically up towards the sky like a rocket or a meteor, leaving behind no trail and disappearing through a round and curiously regular hole in the clouds before any man could gasp or cry out. No watcher could ever forget that sight. I bet not. And Amy stared blankly at the stars of Cygnus Deneb. Of Cygnus Deneb twinkling above the others, where the unknown color had melted into the Milky Way. But his gaze was the next moment called swiftly to earth by the crackling in the valley. It was just that, only a wooden ripping and crackling, not an explosion, as so many others of the party vowed. Yet the outcome was the same, for in one feverish, kaleidoscopic instant there burst up from that doomed and accursed farm a gleamingly eruptive cataclysm of unnatural sparks and substance, blurring the glance of the few who saw it, and sending forth to the zenith a bombarding cloudburst of such colored and fantastic fragments as our universe must needs disown. Through quickly reclosing vapors they followed the great morbidity that had vanished, and in another second they had vanished too. Behind and below was only a darkness to which the men dared not return, and all about was a mounting wind which seemed to sweep down in black. What? Rears aside. Frore, Frore, which seemed to sweep down in black Frore gust. Don't know that word, never seen that word. And rears aside. From interstellar space. Black Frore gust from interstellar space. It shrieked and howled and lashed the fields and distorted woods in a mad cosmic frenzy, till soon the trembling party realized there would be no use for the moon to show what was left down there at Nahum's. Too odd even to hint theories. That's too odd. That's AWED. And reader's aside, too odd even to hint theories. The 7 shaking men trudged back toward Arkham by the north road. Amy was worse than his fellows and begged them to see him inside his own kitchen instead of keeping straight on to town. He did not wish to cross the nighted, wind-whipped woods alone to his home on the main road, for he had had an added shock that the others were spared, and was crushed forever with a brooding fear he dared not even mention for many years to come. As the rest of the watchers on that tempestuous hill had stolidly set their faces toward the road, Amy had looked back an instant at the shadowed valley of desolation, so lately sheltering his ill-starred friend, and from that stricken, faraway spot he had seen something feebly rise, only to sink down again upon the place from which the great shapeless horror had shot to the sky. It was just a color, but not any color of our earth or heavens. And because Amy recognized that color, and knew that his last faint remnant must still lurk down there in the well, he has never been quite right since. Amy would never go near the place again. It was over half a century now since the horror happened, but he has never been there, and will be glad when the new reservoir blots it out. I shall be glad too, for I do not like the way the sunlight changed color around the mouth of that abandoned well I passed. I hope the water will always be very deep, but even so, I shall never drink it. I do not think I shall visit the Arkham country hereafter. 3 of the men who had been with Amy returned the next morning to see the ruins by daylight, but there were not any real ruins, only the bricks of the chimney and the stones of the cellar, some mineral and metallic litter here and there, and the rim of the Nefandus well. What? Nefandus? Save for Emmy's dead horse, which they towed away and buried, and the buggy, which they shortly returned to him, everything that had ever been living had gone. 5 eldritch acres of dusty gray desert remained. Nor has anything ever grown there since. To this day it sprawls open to the sky like a great spot eaten by acid in the woods and fields, and the few who have ever dared glimpse it in spite of the rural tales have named it the Blasted Heath. The rural tales are queer. They might be even queerer if city men and college chemists would be interested enough to analyze the water from that disused well, or the grey dust that no winds ever seem to disperse. Botanists, too, ought to study the stunted flora on the borders of that spot, for they might shed light on the country notion that the blight is spreading, little by little, perhaps an inch a year. People say the color of the neighboring herbage is not quite right in the spring, and that wild things leave queer prints in the light winter snow. Snow never seems quite so heavy on the blasted heath as it is elsewhere. Horses, the few that are left in this motor age, grow skittish in the silent valley, and hunters cannot depend on their dogs too near the splotch of greyish dust. They say the mental influences are very bad too. Numbers went queer in the years after Nahum's taken. Reader's aside. So the guy's name was Nahum. That's how I'm pronouncing it. Again, odd names in the story. Nahum. I settled on Nahum. Just seemed less unwieldy, rather than like Nahum or Nahum or Nahum. Kind of just obliterating the H, really. Nahum. Which is fair, you can do that. And reader's aside. Reader's aside. So Nahum. No, not giving any background. Right, sorry. Okay, cool. Reader's aside. Numbers went queer in the years after Nahum's taking, and always they lacked the power to get away. Then the stronger-minded folk all left the region, and only the foreigners tried to live in the crumbling old homesteads. They could not stay, though, and one sometimes wonders what insight beyond ours their wild, weird stores of whispered magic have given them. Their dreams at night, they protest, are very horrible in that grotesque country, and surely the very look of the dark realm is enough to stir a morbid fancy. No traveller has ever escaped a sense of strangeness in those deep ravines, and artists shiver as they paint thick woods whose mystery is as much of the spirit as of the eye. I myself am curious about the sensation I derived from my one lone walk before Amy told me his tale. When twilight came, I had vaguely wished some clouds would gather, for an odd timidity about the deep, skyey voids above had crept into my soul. Reader's aside. Second time I've seen this word in the story. Skyey. Skyey. I don't disapprove of it. Skyey. Like, I get it. It's just new to me. Whatever. Reader's aside. Do not ask me for my opinion. I do not know, that is all. There was no one but Amy to question, for Arkham people will not talk about the strange days, and all three professors who saw the aerolite and its colored globule are dead. There were other globules. Depend upon that. One must have fed itself and escaped. And probably there was another which was too late. No doubt it is still down the well. I know there was something wrong with the sunlight I saw above that miasmal brink. The rustics say the blight creeps an inch a year, so perhaps there is a kind of growth or nourishment even now. But whatever daemon hatchling is there, it must be tethered to something, or else it would quickly spread. It is fastened to the roots of those trees that claw. Is it fastened to the roots of those trees that claw the air? One of the current Arkham tales is about fat oaks that shine and move as they ought not to do at night. What it is, only God knows. In terms of matter, I suppose the thing Amy described would be called a gas, but this gas obeyed laws that are not of our cosmos. This was no fruit of such worlds and suns as shine on the telescopes and photographic plates of our observatories. This was no breath from the skies whose motions and dimensions our astronomers measure or deem too vast to measure. It was just a color out of space, a frightful messenger from unformed realms of infinity beyond all nature as we know it, from realms whose mere existence stuns the brain and numbs us with the black extra-cosmic gulfs it throws open before our frenzied eyes. I doubt very much if Amy consciously lied to me, and I do not think his tale was all a freak of madness, as the townsfolk had forewarned. Something terrible came to the hills and valleys on that meteor, and something terrible, though I know not in what proportion, still remains. I shall be glad to see the water come. Meanwhile, I hope nothing will happen to Emmy. He saw so much of the thing, and its influence was so insidious. Why has he never been able to move away? How clearly he recalled those dying words of Nahum's. Can't get away. Draws you. You know something's a-comin'. But 'tain't no use. Emmy is such a good old man. When the Westford gang gets up to work, I must write the chief engineer to keep a sharp watch on him. I would hate to think of him as the grey, twisted, brittle monstrosity which persists more and more in troubling my sleep. And that's the end of the story. Another positively strange one. I did see a film adaptation a little while back. It was strange and unsettling at parts, which was faithful to the subject matter. Although I believe it was set in more current times, which is fine. Alright, so I'm actually quite hungry. I want to get home and make a sandwich. I bought these delicious fucking pickles the other day. These like spicy pickles. It was a $5 jar of pickles. I'm not messing around. Oh me, fuck. Fucking insolent fly. Anyways, mind your own business and stop fucking around, shit like that, and just take it easy, I guess. All right, we're done. I'm going home. Have a good night.
And they even went to the moon. And there was a time in this country, a long time ago, when reading wasn't just for fags.